we'll get started. They can mosey on in as they come in. So hi everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. I want to get this. Hopefully it doesn't dance on me until I trail. Oh, this isn't what this is back to the beginning. Hello. So here we are. We're at our auditor training. Today's date. I'm Jennifer Rusty. I'm the auditor for council. So this is my second year as auditor for the Torrance Council PTAs. That's what TCPTA stands for, in case you're like, what are all these little acronyms? And then my email address. We all have new email addresses. So I have forwarded the old email address is being forwarded to this new one. So if you use the old one, it looks like we have a lot of new auditors here, so you probably don't know the old one, but if you're coming in here again and you know the old address, the new one is auditor@torrancecouncilptas.org. And that's, you can send me questions there. That's where your audits will be sent to, if you're sending them electronically to me. And I try to I look at the emails, pretty regularly. I try to answer questions as best as they come in. Some may disagree. They say she takes too long to respond, but I do my best. Sorry. So if you're here, first time auditors, thank you so much for coming. The doing the audit is you're as auditor, you're examining the books of the treasurer of your unit. And the audit is required to be done 2 times in the school year. So for responsibilities for the auditors, conduct 2 audits for that year. A lot of people stay, most of the time they're voted in for the second year. So that means if you do it for the 2 years in a row, you have 4 audits to do. And the first one, which if you're new, the old auditor should have turned in the audit that's due now, the current audit that's due now. That should be done by the old auditor. That's their last audit to do for the school year, and that's the January through June audit. So your responsibility as a new auditor will start in January, which is you will do the July 1st to December 31st audit. So that's basically starting the school year. We start our year goes from July to June is how our year goes for PTA. So so the new period would be July 1st, sorry. And so you kind of can get back and relax a little bit until January or so, when you should be getting documents from your treasurer to do this first period audit. By the way, we do have the chat. Some of you did put down that your position, your what school you're at, in your first year position or second year. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat as we go along. Hopefully everything I have on my slides will explain stuff. So that first period audit, what's happening now, you're writing, the treasurer's writing checks, principal or presidents, okaying this and that from the budget. You're doing your thing, running your PTA, you're raising money, you're having programs, this and that. And then after December 31st, your treasurer should get all the documents together to give them to you, hopefully in January, to do the audit. So I have on there, it says due in February. And the reason why we'd like to have it come in February is because you need to get the audit adopted at your board meeting and then your association meeting. And just about every unit has an association meeting in February. That's your election meeting. So if you have it done by that February association meeting, we just can get it adopted and be done with it, you know, so it's kind of good to just get it done kind of quick. That way you don't have to, then you don't have to linger and, you know, if you don't do it in February, then your next meeting may not be till like May or June. And then you got to kind of remember, oh yeah, we got to adopt you July through December audit. So it's kind of just better to have it done. A normal audit, especially this July through December timeframe, because there's, you know, obviously July you're not doing much. Maybe you do a little bit in August, but things don't usually start kicking in until September, October. So it's pretty quick. There's not a lot to look at with it. So if it's, you know, you get it done like a Saturday afternoon or a couple of weeknights, you know, if you know, in between kids' activities, dinner and all that stuff, you know, whatever, however you do it. But it doesn't take long. It really doesn't take that long to do, especially this first audit. So the second audit for the period is going to be January 1st to June 30th. So for you guys, your first year audit is going to be July 1st. Your first period is going to be July 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. And then your second audit is going to be January 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2023. And that audit we like kind of do around September, October. Usually everybody's having a back to school association meeting in September-ish. And it's good to get that one, you know, adopted and, you know, taken care of at association meeting. And we only ask for those time frames because, you know, your association meetings are so spread apart. People aren't having them as frequently as like board meetings. So it's kind of best to, you know, get them done within those two time frames. The one that ends on June 30th, the outgoing auditor is responsible for this audit. So the one that's currently due, the one that's currently due now that people should have turned in October, like now, is the January 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2022. That audit that's due now is the, you know, your outgoing auditor should be working on that. Hopefully, maybe they'll get together with you. Hey, do you want to look at the audit with me as a new auditor just to see what help you out or something? So with this audit, this January to June audit, it is recommended to do it during the summer. It is kind of hard sometimes to get documents, you know, people leave, they go out of town, summertime, to get and coordinate to meet the documents. And then but do your best, you know, in the summer to try to get that stuff. Usually people kind of wait till we start up in August and then they get the audit done before the that September meeting, that September association meeting. And then if you an outgoing auditor and you're no longer on your new scores board, then definitely forward your audit to the new auditor and the new president or you know, if it's the same president, whatever who the president is. And then another so those are the two times the audits due. There is a third time, it's pretty rare, but some, you know, some units have to do it, sometimes it happens. But if a check a check signer resigns from their position, then an audit needs to be conducted. So if your president somehow decides to up and move to, you know, Arkansas or something, and you have to get a new president in or a new treasurer in or something, and you know that you need to audit their books for their whatever time period. So say, okay, you had your election, your treasurer is there June, July, and then, you know, all of a sudden said, hey, and, you know, November, I'm moving into Arkansas, you know, whatever. Then, okay, so you, as the auditor, will have to do a July, whenever they leave, November audit, you know, for their period, for that period of the old treasurer, you know, their time frame. And then the new treasurer would come in November, December, you would have to do an audit for that treasurer. So those things are rare, they happen. If anything kind of wonky like that happens, just reach out to us and we can, you know, on council help guide you with what to do with all that. But that last one is really rare that it happens. And but never say never, right? Stuff happens. So here's the audit report. I just uncapped found the new one, so I was excited. I was able to put it in. So please make sure you use the form that you see here. This is the correct form. There is one that is floating around that does not have this, the auditor is a qualified accountant, yes or no box. That one is fine to use. I mean, we do prefer this one here. Um, you can use the other one, but it needs to have where it's review committee signature. Definitely old, like old audit reports floating around out there that do not have that. Those we cannot accept. And then we cannot accept anything that's like done on an Excel spreadsheet or whatever created, with flowers or whatever. I don't know. But they do want audits to all be on this PTA form that you see here. And so you can find, here's it's under on the CAPTA. CAPTA is California's PTA, so it's the California State PTA. And if you go on their in their toolkit under forms, you could find reports for everything. So all the reports are there. You just download them. They're all downloadable. There is a fillable version of this and a regular version. The fillable, you could just type it all in, and then they have both versions there, and the checklist is there also. So please try to use this one I have posted on here about the with the qualified accountant, yes or no. Or if you have the older one that doesn't have that line, but it still has the auditor committee signature, the review committee signature, that one's fine as well. I had that one up just up here, but I took it down because I found the new one. I was like, where's that one with the thing? So here's some of your duties as auditor. I put a check here because you're here. Yay! Thank you for coming. So your one duty is to attend one of these workshops each year. So you're here now. You've done that. Woo. It's recommended to attend the treasurer's training workshop. We do our website, so the Florence Council of PTAs.org website. That's the council website. If you go on there under resources, there are virtual training workshops. You could see last year's one that I did, which is all this information, but it's not on a pretty slide like this one. I kind of did it on a green slide. It's the same, recording, but the financial ones are there, so you don't necessarily have to end the training if you kind of want to see, oh, what a treasurer, what are the documents are they using or whatever. You can go to the website and look up those old training videos, in case you want to know, but you don't have to. But it's kind of recommended that you kind of know. Well, we'll talk about the documents too. So another duty is, your role is to determine the accuracy of the books of the unit and the records of the unit, determine that funds are properly utilized, detect and recommend any corrections of errors that you see in the documents. You're gonna prepare an audit report, and an audit report is done for each bank account. So if you have like an e-script or like a checking and a savings account, you need an audit done for each account. Yeah, even if it's a savings account or used for PayPal, you should have an audit report for both accounts. And then to use the correct form, like we just talked about, I just showed you using the right auditor report form. So let's review some concepts. Woohoo! Another acronym we throw out there all the time is PAs, and that just stands for payment authorizations. So I'll show you, I have in there an example of a payment authorization. I have this one here too. This is actually, if you can see it, it's an orange. Woohoo, it's kind of fading in my forest back there. But it's just off the, there we go. This we just printed right off the CAPTA website. It's just a general PA, who you're paying the check to, what's it for, and then it has the signature of the secretary president. You can just print these out from the toolkit. I do have an example of some that I'll show you that are in my slides. But so these PAs need to have, whenever the treasurer writes a check there, and there should be receipts, obviously, to whatever check they're writing something for, and there should be one of these payment authorizations attached with the receipt on it. So Um, so your role is to look at it, make sure it's filled out correctly, make sure it has the signatures on it. Um, you could check, kind of quickly check the calculations. Like if you look and it says, oh, looks like the check is $500, but then you look at the receipts and the receipts are like $50. You're like, huh, or maybe they didn't put the, decimal point in the right place. I don't know. So just making sure it's like appropriate or whatever. And then the items purchased on the receipt are appropriate. So if somebody stapled their, Panera lunch receipt to the PA, you're like, what? And it says they bought, liquors or something. You're like, what? This don't sound right. Um, there's another, I don't have a copy of that, but the next form that should be attached to deposit slips. So these PAs are for when you're writing a check. And then the next one is cash verification forms. That's when you're counting your money. So that form, I will show you that. I have it on the slide. Uh, is when you're counting all the money for your unit and you're making a deposit, your deposit slip from the bank and your cash verification form should be filled out. And that just breaks down all the money, all the ones that says, oh, nice. Amanda has one up. I have that in the slide. I'll show them all further in the slide. But I have the one that's on, the captain one is a long one like this. But so the bank deposit sheet should be there. It should be signed by two people, that two people are uh, counting the money, that no one's counting money alone. And I'll show you those forms later. And then you should have all your treasurer's report for that period. So the July through December, you should have July, August, September, October, November, December, all 6 of them. And that they match the bank statements. That's another thing that you need to have is bank statements from the time period, those 6 bank statements. Your general ledger, and like I said, the cash verification forms and your PAs with all the receipts attached to them. If you have a financial secretary at your unit, then you can make sure that they have reports. Their financial secretary report is with the documents as well. And then if you're using the triple copy of the deposit slips, like maybe they have their yellow attached slips on there. I have one unit here. I guess I can show you their stuff here. Here's like cash verification forms is one of the units, and then if you there, oh, I got it. There's a yellow, and this is what the cash verification forms look like. If you get them through PTA, through council, they're in triplicate and they look like this. So I have the yellow copy here from one of the units. Or if you just download the one, like this one was downloaded from, yes, it was downloaded from the CAPTA website, the state PTA. And some people, I was at a unit where they made up their own little PA, which is totally fine as long as it has the same information on it. I mean, we prefer you to, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can go on CAPTA and just print them out from there. And then, or buy them if you want them in triplicate like we do. And then you also want the recording secretary minutes for all those months. So, and your association minutes. So if you did July through December, you probably had an association meeting like September, October, and maybe a December one as well. You would have those minutes for those meetings. And then also not many units have a July meeting, but maybe if they did, you would have those minutes, and then August, September, going forward, having the minutes, just so that you can see that most minutes were recorded, and the things that they talked about spending money on is in the minutes. Motions were made for the expenses, those type of things. So here's the example of the auditor checklist. This is also due with your audit. So that one report I showed you, this checklist here will go with it. And this is also, you can get this on that capta.org website. Same thing, you just download it. There's a fillable one as well. And you just click on the boxes you have. I've highlighted this top section right here, this description, and then you just answer all these questions, either yes or no or not applicable. Of course, at the bottom, it says, hey, is there any mismanagement? And then hopefully you say no on there. If it's yes, then it's like, no way. But yeah, it'll just ask you the question. They're yes or no questions. At the top, this is what your treasurer um, should be giving you. You don't need everything on here, but there are stuff that you definitely do need to conduct an audit appropriately. The bylaws and standard rules are good, just to know, what each unit, I mean, we're all pretty much the same, but some units have different standing rules than others. You definitely want to see a budget. The most really important thing is you want the last audit report. So that January, so when you start your July to December audit, you need the January through June 2022 audit to do that, because the ending balance June 30th, that ending balance that you get, that's your beginning balance for July 1st. You definitely want to have that report. And then two, also the top stuff on the audit report, you just copy it from the old audit, your bank information and, your all that stuff. On the ledger, you definitely need your checkbook register, any canceled checks, the authorization for payment, that's the PAs that we were talking about. The cash verification forms, that's the one you do for the deposits. Um, the bank statement for that time period, bank reconciliations, your receipts and bills, those should be with the PAs, and then cash receipts, and then all your minutes, your executive minutes, your association minutes, um, obviously your treasurer's reports, financial secretary, if you have one. If you don't have one, you don't need that, your annual report is not necessary. I mean, if they have it there, usually the treasurer keeps everything together. So if it's there, it's there. And then the taxes, you don't need to see the taxes, but there is a question about, hey, did you file your taxes? One of them on here says, so it's good to know, that yes, filed the taxes. And if your unit's in good standing, then obviously you have filed the taxes. So like I said, if your treasurer kind of says, hey, I don't know what you need from me, if they're a new treasurer and they're like, what do you need from me? You can just print this out and say, hey, I need this top, what you can give me that's in this top section right here. But definitely the most important thing is the last audit report, the bank statements, the authorization payments and the receipts, and the deposits, receipts, the cash verification forms. Those are definitely the top things that you need to do your audit properly. So here's what a completed audit looks like. So here, looking at this top section, this is why it's, another reason why you want the old audit is you want to be able to fill out like your ENI or EIN number. You just get that right from the old audit. Or District 33, your banking info, the address, your account number, what your unit is, that's why you have the bylaws, because they tell you your dues amount. But if you just look at the old audit, that's totally fine. And then you'll fill out, all your findings, your numbers. So here's the July through December audit. This was back in 2020. You're going to put down in checks were for this audit period. So whatever check starting, the first check you wrote July 1st, or usually some units don't start writing a check till September, but whatever that check number was until December 31st, the ending number. And usually they write checks, middle of December, because everybody leaves for winter break. So whatever the last ones in December were. So that's a check period. So this, and then here, this number right here was obviously their last audit report. The last audit report's number, they just transferred it over to this audit report for June 30th, 2020, and that was the number they got at the end. Oh, sorry. All right, there's all those things I want to show you. That jumped away. That's the end of my slide. Sorry, guys. That's weird. I was going backwards and it was advancing. Sorry. So here you will have your total receipts, your dispersed, then you add them up, your last audit with your receipts, you add them up, that's the total. Then your disbursements is what you're going to subtract, and then your balance. So you'll have, at the end on December 31st, your balance on hand. Then when you look at your bank statement, December 31st, here's how you began. There might be some stuff that hasn't cleared yet. So you would record those right here and then subtract that from the beginning, and then you'll get your ending balance for that time period. And this number and this number need to match. There's little stars right here. Those numbers need to match in order for your audit to be complete. If the numbers don't match, then you got to kind of look back and see. Hopefully, most of our units are on PTA EZ. Um, I think pretty much all of there's maybe one or two units that aren't. But if you on PTA EZ, it's very easy to get documents from your treasurer. All the treasurer's reports, the financial secretary reports. Hopefully there is a bank reconciliation form that you can do through PTA Easy, and it's super easy and quick, and it's really helpful especially for the auditor, because when you're going back and looking at checks, see what's cleared, if all those reconciliations are done each month, then it just makes the audit go by quicker, and you won't have to be searching for stuff. So what I usually recommend auditors do is you will get each month the treasurer's report, but with PTA Easy, you can run a report from any time period that you want. So I've always told auditors to ask the treasurer so you guys will be doing the July 1st, December 31st audit. I asked for an audit report for that time period. I mean, not an audit report, I'm sorry, a treasurer's report for that time period. So I say, can I get the July 1st to December 31st treasurer's report? So that'll have everything listed on there, all the checks, all the deposits. And that way, when you're filling in these top numbers, it makes it a lot easier. And then also, as you're going through the state, like checking off, if you have to do that as kind of like a reconciliation because maybe it wasn't done, you could say, okay, this check, and then you'll look and you'll say, oh, I'm off by $35. These two amounts don't match. They're off by $35 because, oh, this check back in October for $35 didn't clear yet. So that's when you would record it there, and then your numbers will match, So yeah, so it's very good practice to have the treasurers do a bank reconciliation, especially through PTA Easy each month. They should be doing that already. I think that's kind of a requirement now from our insurance. So looking here, you'll see this report looks correct. All of our numbers are matching. So the person, Xed off correct here. If there are errors that you notice, like, oh, there's receipts, some of the receipts are missing, the person doesn't have the right receipts, or there's, for some reason, the checks someone keeps mixing up writing the check, so they keep voiding a check. Like there's all these voided checks because checks weren't written in the right amount, certain things, whatever happens, then you just write recommendations. So your audit could be substantially correct. And then you would just type up some recommendations like, hey, make sure you have all your receipts with your payment authorizations. And just to let you guys know, I know it sounds like, ooh, auditor, oh my God, scary stuff. You guys are not like, IRS agents. This is just making sure everybody's on the up and up, going through the books. No one's gonna come back like, oh my God, what if there's all these mistakes? There's a ton of mistakes. Like you are missing a ton of documents. You are, somebody, I don't know, they were moving and the documents got mixed up or whatever. Who knows what happened? People aren't trying to, all volunteers, so no one's trying to like be nefarious with things. So sometimes things get mixed up or whatever. So sometimes you might have to do a partial correct, and that there's more adequate procedures you need to go, and you just give them back their stuff and say, hey, you need to fix all this, then give it to me when it's all like fixed, like make sure. And but for the most part, it's just, there's a few things like maybe they need to get a signature on one or two PAs, and then you just write, hey, make sure you get signatures on all your PAs. there's always simple stuff. And if there is any kind of, the mistakes I've always noticed are when checks aren't written for the right amount. Like, oh, it's supposed to be $58.35, and they put $58.83, you know what I mean? Or whatever, like, and then you would just write that down, say, oh, this check number was supposed to be for this amount, but it was written for this amount. And that's where the discrepancy is coming from. That's usually a big one. Or they need to go back. Usually PTA Easy is a little weird with the doing like balance adjustments. So sometimes people at like, if the bank charges you a fee, like a $3 fee every month, some people do it as an increase instead of a decrease. And so you could be off by, $12 or $18 or something, and be like, oh, what's coming from, they added it in instead of taking it out or something. So you just gotta like tell them, oh, you need to correct this and all that. So this is an older audit report. It still has, the one I showed you earlier had, like I said, are you an accountant? Yes or no. This one we still will take. You just have a review committee signature and the date they reviewed it. And then your board dates, your board adoption date, your association adoption date. You sign it and print your name. And then obviously when you completed it, same as up here. Now the review committee person, um, it says committee, but it could be one, it's really one person. It doesn't need to be a committee. Basically what that is just someone who's not a check signer and not related to you that just checked your audit. So all they're going to do is you're going to hand them the slip. They're going to look at these numbers. Okay, this adds up right. Subtract that, get that number, make sure these numbers match, and then go, oh, your audit looks great. Sign it. That's all they do. It literally like takes 5 minutes, to look. And that's all they're doing is they're just looking at this one sheet of yours. They're not going through and looking at the books, and you already did all that, right? They're just looking at your audit. This is a requirement from our insurance company, AIM. This is their requirement. They want us to have an audit review person to look at the audits. Now, I'm already looking at all your audits as council auditor. So there's only one unit, which is my unit at Torrance-L, but I can't be the audit review person. But for all the other 29 units, if you need me to be your audit review person, just appoint me in your meetings, in one of your meetings, and just say, and just let me know, like, hey, we want you to be our audit review person for the year. And I'll, once I get them, I'll sign them and, look through it. I do that already anyway. If you have an auditor who is a CPA, like we saw in that other form, where it says, are you an accountant? Yes or no? That's this form here. This is the newer form. If you have this, and if you put yes, then you don't need an audit review committee person. You don't need to get this signed. If it's checked yes, then you're fine. If you're already a CPA. Most of us, we're all volunteers. We're just doing our best. So we don't get, I'm gonna you may get one. But so here, if you have this old form and you are a CPA and accountant and you don't need a person, you can just put NA right there. If you still have this using this old form, but the newer form is up on CAPTA. It wasn't before, but it's up there now. And then you would just send this to me, send this to your your president, and your treasurer, obviously, and then we file that. Now, most units will say, when do you want the audit? Some units wait till the meetings to get it adopted so they can put it in. I personally tell you, just whenever you finish the audit, send it to me, and you can always send me the adoption dates later. I have a whole like spreadsheet. I have, like all the units. Have they turned in their audit? Is it signed? Does it have the adoption date? So I will periodically send emails like, hey, I need your adoption dates, knowing that, oh, like like usually kind of December, I'll get an email. If I haven't gotten it yet, I'll say, hey, I know you probably had your association meeting. Do you have, adoption date for me? And then you just send back, yeah, December 12th, or whatever. So you don't have to wait till all these things have happened in order to send it to me. You can send it to me once you have completed it. That way, if there is an issue, I can say, hey, look, these numbers don't match, or, or they're not calculating to this final number or something. Sometimes that happens. But yeah, you can always send it to me, and even tell me like, hey, we're having our association meeting, next month on whatever date, the 11th, and then our I mean, not association, our board meeting on the 11th, and then our next association meeting isn't until, you know, well, you guys will send it. If you send it in February to me or late January, say, hey, oh, our association meeting isn't going to be till, the 23rd of February. And then you send it to me like February 1st. That's really fine. That way I know and I can record it when it happens. So I'll show you we talked about all that. Um, some questions here. Substantially correct versus correct. Correct is if everything looks great. Substantially correct is if there's kind of a pattern of, hey, things aren't being signed. Like there's maybe two or three PAs that weren't signed, or there are two or three that don't have a second signature on the deposit form. Just like small minor things, then you would be substantially correct. If you go through all the PAs and none of them are signed, you're like, okay, you need to go back and get these all signed. Then that's bigger than substantially, that's partially correct. But substantially correct is acceptable. It's obviously correct is acceptable. But substantially correct just means there's a few errors, and you just write them on the recommendations. Like, oh, you need to make sure everything gets signed, and that's it. And we went over when to send the audit. Send it as soon as you're done, and then we can backtrack with the dates. And what you send to me is basically the audit report. So what we saw here, this audit report, and the checklist right here, this page 2. And sometimes I'll just get some units will just give me the audit report, and then I'll just email you and say, hey, I need a checklist too. And I'll send you an email about that. And then if it's applicable, just a Word doc or a Pages doc with the recommendations. And it's just a simple type it up, recommendations, audit recommendations, and then you just bullet, there's like 3 things. Oh, they need to have them all signed. A couple of them weren't signed. Oh, this check, one check is, and another one is avoiding the checks. Like, oh, the check is sitting too long. Like it's sitting longer than the audit period. Like nobody's cashed it. So it's like, oh, hey, you need to void this check because it's been, it's pretty much a dead check. Whatever the recommendations are. So of course, these 3 things are you can send to me here at the auditor councilptas.org. CCR historian as well. That's Carrie, and her email is docs@Torrance Council of PTAs. And then if you're not able to send a digital copy, you can make copies. And then when your president comes to the next executive board meeting, it's the first Wednesday, pretty much the first Wednesday of every month, then they can bring physical copies to that meeting. Fine. We've kind of, with COVID and everything, people have been doing everything electronically and gotten really good at sending things electronically. So we don't see a lot of paper documents anymore. But sometimes you need to, and that's fine. And so if you handwrite it or whatever, that's fine too. Then you'll make copies for your president, your financial team. And then obviously you want to review with the financial team and including the president. Usually in the meeting, the next board meeting, when you're adopting the audit, I'll say, oh, here's the audit. We're presenting the audit with these following recommendations. And if there's a few of them, I'll just read, or I'll say, oh, with the attached, recommendations. And then that way your president knows what's going on, your financial team knows what's going on, and they can fix certain things. And then when I don't know, do I have that in there? Oh, here we go. Yes, once it's complete, like I said, you will have an audit. If you're not a CPA, you need to have an audit review person review your audit and sign the report at the bottom. So you need to appoint this person needs to be approved by your board and your association. So if you do me, that's fine. You just appoint me at your next meeting and appoint me at your next association meeting as well. So it can't be anybody who's a check signer that's on the financial team or obviously blood related. You're going to present your audit when it's done at your executive board meeting. if it has recommendations, there's a line on the audit report, and that's all you need to do with presenting it to the board. You just read, it says right here, read the following when the audit report is given. So when it's your turn, or needs to adopt the audit, okay, you just say, I have examined the physical and the financial records of the treasurer of whatever unit you are, and I find them to be correct, or you'll say, or substantially correct the following tax recommendations. One of those things. When you're adopting the audit, these two are the acceptable ones. Partially incorrect and incorrect means, they need to go back and look. And partially incorrect means there's like nothing signed, or there's missing a ton of missing receipts. A couple of missing receipts, that happens. But if you're going through and there's like no, like 3 receipts for, and you wrote like 20 checks, you're like, wait a minute, I need to find these receipts, or at least, now everybody gets emailed invoices and things like that. There's ways to get receipts and stuff, but they definitely need to have documentation. So, yeah, so you just read that line on there, I examine the financial records and I find them to be correct or substantially correct. Then you make a motion to adopt the audit. And then once it's adopted by the board, you present and you do the same thing at the association meeting. You read the same thing and you adopt the audit. Um, and some have asked, oh, what if our next meeting is the association meeting and then we've already had a board meeting? Can I flip it? And it's kind of, it happens, it's not a big deal. Yeah, you can get it adopted at, like say, oh, you finish the audit in like the middle of February, but you already had your executive board meeting. Maybe you had it at the beginning of February, but then your association meeting is coming up at the end of February. So you would adopt it at your association at the end of February, and then you adopt it at your executive board like the beginning of March. The part usually you will adopt it at your board meeting first because you have those monthly, but it can happen sometimes to where, oh, I didn't get the audit done in time for that February board meeting, but you still want to get it adopted at the association. So you would do that first. And it happens. Um, so just remember to write down the dates if you keep the audit with you, or email me the dates if you've already sent the audit in. Um, if I'm your board person, present your audit to the board and association and then forward it to me. Well, you'll do that anyway. So yeah. Any questions so far with anything before I go through documents? Real quick. Is there anything on the Amanda on the chat?
Oh, it's just Yuri was saying that Kelly's not on my PTEZ. She's like, can we convince him, please?
Oh yeah. You know what? If you can talk them into it, it's about 100, 150, depending on how much your unit makes. It's a lifesaver. I've been on a unit. I was on a unit that didn't have it, and then and I talked them into it. I remember spending the summer as a treasurer, like trying to get the audit ready, and I could not find this one. Everything was handwritten. Ugh, it was such a mess, and it took me like all summer almost. I can't even remember how long I sat at my table, like going through, and then to the point I got to stop and then come back to it, just for like some $9 miswritten thing. It was crazy. I said, and mistakes will happen on PTA but for the most part, they're easy to find, and you're not handwriting everything out and typing everything. Oh, it's all in there for you. It generates all your reports. It's really great. Yeah. So here's some documents here that of what we've been talking about, PAs and check verification and all that stuff. So here's an example. You could buy these through, your treasurer could get these through, council. These are the ones that are in triplicate. So there's a white copy, a pink and a yellow copy. And it's just like the PA, that I showed you, this orange one on capta.org, but it's in triplicate. It's just the same thing, who's requesting the check number, who's it payable to, what the account, and what's it budgeted for. Like, oh, we spent $300 on, and the budget item is like, AIA supplies, like if you do Adventures in Art, And then it would be like, oh, we bought paintbrushes and paint and whatever you need to do the AIA project. And then, obviously your total, and then here, down here is two signatures. So it needs to be signed. All PAs, no matter what whatever, you get them through this way or you print them out. They need to have a president's signature and the recording secretary's signature. So this one you can buy, I think they're like $5 for 50 of them. They come in triplicate. It's kind of good to have if you're giving everybody their little documents down here. Um, I don't know. It's just to me easier to print them out. My unit has both, so I found a drawer of these in there. I'm like, oh, okay, we can use them. So here's how it looks filled out. This Judy is requesting, she spent this money. And so you will see attached to this will be your original receipts and invoices. So HSA certificates, that's like PTA, there's a website, they'll send you an invoice and email, so that should be attached to here. And then if she went to Target and bought spring fundraiser supplies, the Target receipt should be stapled to or attached somehow to this PA right here for payment authorization. And then the check number is on there. The check written to Judy right here, Judy Briggs. He's getting her check reimbursement for the thing she bought, and it should be this, whatever the check number is from the, on the registry of checks. Here's an example of, again, you could get these through council. They're same thing. They're in triplicate. And this is when you're counting money for your fundraisers. So you would put all your coin, all your currency, list all your checks, and have your grand total. This is nice too with PT. And if you have membership dues, like if you're counting a lot of stuff, sometimes I'll count membership donations, spiritware, I count it all together. And so I put it all on here and I make sure I okay, we got 5 memberships for this month and put them down. And then the donations, maybe somebody donate $100 and you put it, you mark it. And then, so you'll see they should have a bank receipt. When they go to the bank and make this deposit, there should be a bank receipt that'll list all the stuff on here. And so, then it should match, obviously, whatever, $1,000 was deposited, the receipt should say $1,000 on there, and that's what that looks like. Oh, I don't have one with it filled out, but you get the gist, we get it. So here's an example of a treasurer's report that's for the whole period. So they should have you eat, obviously a treasury report for each month. But like I said, I like to ask for the whole period. That way I can just look. This is July 1st to December 31st for the whole period. So this unit had these deposits made and for that time period. And then all these checks they wrote from that time period. So when you have this document, it really makes it easy for you to fill out your report, because you'll just say the check, the check listing, the check period for the period of this period is starts at 1885 and then ends at 1904, and I think this is the one that we talked about, right? I'm almost done, sorry. So looking at the audit report that was filled out, the 1885 to 1904. And then you have your beginning balance that you're going to get from your last audit report. And so looking here, the receipts that they received for that time period, it says 55, 57, 15. And if I look here on this audit report, here it is, 55, 57, 15. And that matches. So it looks great. And then if I look here, 10,231, going back to what they documented, here it is, the disbursements, 10,231.79. So, and it matches. So when you look through everything and, gone through each report, so then there's the balance at the end and it matches the balance from the previous one. So this way, I like to have this report and I go through, okay, and I like to have everything month by month. That's how I organize it. That's just me. And so I'll look at, okay, August or July, they had one deposit. Boom, I'm done with July. August, one deposit. Okay, boom, no checks. Now I get to September, one deposit in September and I see it all. Then I look down. Okay, it looks like 3 checks were written in September, and I see all the documents, and I just check it off as I go. It matches. I check it off as sorry. And then I go through October, and I go through November, December. That way, and like I said, this is a pretty standard time period. It's really simple and easy. We'll see the next audit, January to June. Usually in spring, you do a lot of stuff. So you'll see this document's like a 2-page document. But usually, July, it's nothing. And then, it's pretty light in the beginning of the year. So this is pretty typical what you'll see. Maybe a few checks written each month, maybe 5, 6 checks. Getting down to December, you start doing more stuff. You write maybe 6 or 7 checks, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. So this, going through and looking through everything really doesn't take too much time. But I do like to have this report. That's just me. I like having it because then I can just, I have this one report to look at and I just check it off. And then I've looked through everything else and, it just all matches and stuff. Someone asked me once, do we have to look at everything? Yeah, you should. That's, your role as an auditor, but it's quick. I mean, me talking about all this takes longer than you actually looking through the documents. You know what I mean? Like you're like looking at 3 checks, 3 invoices for September. Oh, boom. Okay, there's the receipt. It matches. Okay, on to the next one. Oh, it matches. Boom, boom, boom. So me even describing it to you is taking longer than you actually doing it. Um, it's pretty straightforward and simple to look through the docs pretty quickly. And I'm done. I'm right under my hour mark. Woohoo! Thank you all for coming. We're gonna in January. I know there's a lot of you that are new. We're going to in January. What we kind of like to do is kind of do the audit together. So if there's any way, especially if I hopefully can plan the workshop maybe the middle to end of January. So hopefully if you get your documents from your treasurer, we can actually, at least fill in the top part, like start the audit kind of thing. If you're still kind of leery, like, oh, I don't really still know what to do. This recording will be up on our Torrance Council PTA's website. The old one is up there as well, the one I did for last year. And I think even the spring one, I don't know. I know there's at least one up there of me in it. And then, if you want to, maybe I was clearer last year than this year. I don't know if you want to review that last year one. But definitely, if you have any questions, let me know in the chat right now, or if you think of something later, especially when you start getting the audit, you're kind of like, oh, wait, did she talk about this? I don't remember. Obviously, you can email me. My auditor at Torrance Council PTA's email is there. You can text me, call me. This is my phone number there. You can reach me those ways. And just reach out, whatever, like I said, no one's like, ooh, oh, Madrona, ooh, they're bad, ooh, they didn't, spend their money right. Like no one's, like if you need help, we'll help you with stuff and all of that. We're here to help. So, yeah, don't think like, oh, I don't want to get counsel involved because they're gonna, think that we're not doing things right or whatever, So I've gotten that thought in my head before about it, like, oh, I don't want counsel involved. Like, let's, figure it out on our own. And then I start to talk to like our financial counsel, and I'm like, no one's biting my head off. No one's gonna shame on you. I just asked the question, and everything's fine. All volunteers, we all understand, we all have lives and stuff. I know there's been times I've waited like 5 months for an auditor to finish a report or, audit report. I'm like, oh, you're going to have another audit coming up. But you got to get this in. But we're definitely here to help if there's any, I have done some units audits if they don't have an auditor or if they need help with the audit for some reason. I've stepped in. So just reach out if you need anything. Again, thank you so much for coming here. I know a lot of this we talked about is kind of doesn't apply right now because you're waiting till January to start your audit, but definitely you can reach out if you need a refresher or if you want to look at the videos, they'll be up online as well. Thank you guys. Any questions?
Thanks, Jen. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks. know, I want to say, and we'll adjourn this meeting at
Oh,
under the
hey,
hour
Jen.
though. Yes.
Hey, Jen. Hi, this is Melissa Lumaco. I have one question since sounds like you're still there. What can I be doing during the year, the rest of the year, like during my next couple of PTA meetings, in between the audits to make it easy on myself? Like, how do I use those meetings to like my advantage, or is that just not really how it works?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really you can do,
Okay.
unless, and like I said, maybe just talking to your treasurer and being like, I mean, if you have like your own process, I mean, you haven't done it yet, so you probably don't even have your own process. But like for me,
Right.
some treasurers have given me just, oh, here's all the documents, and they'll have it like separated, like all the treasurer's reports together, all the which is fine. I don't mind. But I personally, like, I organize it month by month. That's how I like to see it. I like to see each month. So maybe
Mhm.
if that's something you prefer, like when you're, organizing your life in general, and you're like, no, I don't like everything all together. I want it month by month. Maybe talking to the treasurer and saying, hey, is there any way when you give me the stuff, you can maybe
Okay.
organize it by month, if that's how you prefer it, or um, yeah, there's really nothing to, unless maybe reminding them, like the treasurer or the president, like, okay, yeah, like in December, especially right before the break. Um, yeah, if you, sorry, Yuri, I'll answer a question. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat as I'm talking to you. Sorry. Total, I'm like at a squirrel moment. Oh my God, I'm like squirrel. Yes, Yumi, I'll get to your question right after. So anyways, like maybe reminding the president, especially if you have a new president, say, hey, before we shut down in December for the break, like make sure you have all, everything signed, all the because like right now I have a stack of
Okay.
PAs here that I haven't had my president sign yet, and I'm gonna have to, I'm like, I gotta get with her and just have her sign all stuff we talked about, all stuff we have in our minutes. It's just a matter of,
Mhm.
signing it. I've just been writing, we've been not doing things in person, seeing each other in person as much, because we have different schedules and stuff. So I'll write checks, I'll leave them in the PTA box, she signs them, and then I'll say, oh, I'll handle you signing the PA later. So
Okay.
maybe just reminding them like, hey, make sure the PAs get all signed, or, something like that. There's kind of nothing really
Okay.
to prep for. Like I said, unless those couple of things, like you know.
Okay. Just thought I'd
Okay.
ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Yuri, you have a question about your unit?
Yes. Hi. Let me turn my phone. Okay. So this is actually not, so I'm auditor for
Callie.
Callie, but I'm
Uh-huh.
financial secretary for Arnold. And I don't know
Uh-huh.
if you're aware of our situation at Arnold. Our
No.
treasurer last year